Good morning, everyone. Remember, everyone, please silence your cell phones. Welcome to the Planning Board regular meeting on Thursday, March 14th, 2024, and it's 9:30 a.m. And we're waiting for Roger to come through the door at any second. Can we, yes, can we switch the agenda a bit and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first, please?
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No. I am gonna have to call the
Yeah.
roll. Mr. Hart, please call the roll.
Member Rosen,
Eva Rosen?
Member Powell. Member Chinovsky.
Present.
Member Axelrod,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Mendelson,
Here.
Chairperson Goldenberg.
Here, and I believe Roger will be here in a moment. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Is there a call for a motion to accept the agenda as presented? And here's Roger. So Roger is present. We were dilly-dallying a little bit for you, Roger. I know. Blame it on the town. It ain't gonna get better, that's for sure. Is there a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Swearing in of the public. For those giving testimony, please stand and raise your right hands to be sworn in by Mr. Hart to provide testimony for the application you are affiliated with.
Yep.
With everybody, Mr. Hart?
By the authority vested in me as notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Approval of the minutes, February 8th, 2024. Are there any corrections or? Not hearing none. May I have a motion to approve? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any unfinished business? As not per the agenda, I would like to just refer to, find out. In the last meeting, we said that we approved that application. Was it formalized?
Yes, I was going to advise the board. So staff received the deed on March 6th of 2024 from that property 1101 Highland Beach Drive, Unit A. So they did purchase that strip of land to the north, and they can now proceed with submitting for their building permit.
All right, so then we have no further action on
No
that,
further action.
and we can put that one to bed. All right, moving to new business. Development order application 23-0014. That's Kai. Would you help me pronounce that? Kai, thank you. Application by Joseph Gillo, C-Tech Construction, Inc. for a special exception request to install a 100-foot linear seawall cap and a 365 square foot concrete dock and a 100 linear foot stem wall for the property located at 4215 Tranquility Drive. I will ask, do any board members have any ex parte communication? Hearing none at this time, the public meeting is hearing, and Ms. Town Planner Allen, please present the application.
Okay, good morning. For the record, Ingrid Allen, Town Planner. I'll go ahead and start with the aerial of the project. This aerial is on page 12 of your packets. Here you have the subject property outlined in red. And then the next photo here that we have is of the actual rear of the property where you have the existing seawall and dock. As indicated, this applicant is proposing to install a 100-foot linear seawall cap, a 375 square foot concrete dock, and a 100 linear foot stem wall, for the property at 4215 Tranquility Drive. As you can see, there's currently a seawall there and there's currently a dock. The current dock is 364 square feet. I do want to point out that the dock is currently 5.2 feet in width, and the new proposed dock will be 7 feet 6 inches in width. The applicant has received FDP approval, that is in your packets as well. And when you read the second page of that approval, it does indicate that Army Corps approval is not required for this particular permit. As you all are aware, section 6-128B of the town code does require all seawalls that are west of A1A that they be at base flood elevation or higher. The base flood elevation for this property is 6 feet and the proposed seawall is at 6 feet. Now, this request also is for a stem wall. And I do indicate on page 9 of your staff reports that the code is silent on stem walls, but keep in mind that stem walls and retaining walls are very similar in terms of construction. And we do have a provision in the code that the planning board should approve any type of retaining wall. So retaining wall, stem wall. We did have the town engineer. We do outsource our engineering services with CAP Government. The town engineer did confirm from a structural perspective that the stem wall is structurally supported by the seawall and obviously part of the seawall. And the engineer did review and accept that stem wall. If the planning board finds this application viable for approval or appropriate for approval, I should say, the applicant will be required to attain a building permit, and construction shall be initiated within 2 years following the date of the planning board approval. Staff, we reviewed the project, and those plans are date stamped February 21st, 2024, and they are compliant with the code. Let's look at the rest of the plans. These are the 11x17 sheets that are in your packet. This is just a survey of the property. You could see the existing dock. And here you have the site plan showing the new dock, seawall. This is in a residential single-family zoning district, so they are required to provide the 25 feet. Marine side setback, which is, I put a little 25 foot there on the plan. And then here you have the detail. You could see the top, there's a 6 foot height there. So I'll be happy to address any questions. We also have the authorized agent here to address any questions. Yes.
All right, do we have any board members with questions? And I think Eileen, please.
So can you show me what the stem wall is, that little thing up there?
Do we have the light thing? No. Okay, you see on the top, it says
Yes,
new
yes,
8-inch stem wall?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, if the code deals with retaining walls and specifically didn't deal with stem walls, what is the actual difference, like, in the definition? I mean, you said it's like a retaining.
Yeah,
wall.
I mean, it's similar in terms of construction. The code doesn't define either a stem wall. I don't think it even defines a retaining wall. But because they're similar in construction, we did call it out in the request. But it is, as I said, the engineer indicated that it is indeed part, obviously, of the seawall.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not meant, like a retaining wall is meant to hold things back, or is that?
Yeah, actually, I did have Jeff Remus, our building official, because when it comes to structures,
Yeah.
I'll defer to Jeff, because it's, how the structures are built is not really my forte, but maybe Jeff, can you elaborate a little bit
Yeah.
about
I'm
the
just-
structural aspect
I'm
of
just
it? Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, that's in here.
Good morning. For the
Good
record,
morning,
Jeff
Jeff.
Remus, building official, Town of Highland Beach. So they incorporated basically a retaining wall into the seawall cap that's acting, it essentially is acting as a retaining wall, but they're calling it a stem wall. It's a necessity for the property because of the elevation of the home and everything else. So right now, because of the seawall is actually pushing out and it really needs to be replaced. So that's why we gave emergency approval to put in temporary pilings to kind of hold it back. Part of the problem is that some of the earth from underneath the pool stuff is falling out. So in order to make a proper improvement and do it the right way, They've added and they've called it a stem wall. They could have done it afterwards and just called it a retaining wall, and that wouldn't even have to come in front of you.
Right, so,
But, right,
so
so,
it's basically a post that comes out and holds the retaining wall a little stronger.
no,
so-
it's a wall itself.
It's
The-
by
wall.
itself.
they're calling a stem wall. It's, to me, it's really a retaining wall. If I look at building code definitions, but in planning and zoning, they don't define a stem wall because it's normally a very specific component of construction. That's what the engineer decided to call it. It's essentially acting as a retaining wall that is going to be a significant improvement to the property
good
and help
thing.
it. And
Yeah,
and that additional, and what's going to be even better about this is that the seawall height is going to 6 feet, and then that stem wall is going even higher. So it's going to provide even more protection to the property and more protection to the island.
So Jeff, the retaining wall is really for the earth, seawall for the water.
That is correct.
Okay.
But
All right.
they incorporated that and call it a stem wall into the cap. Therefore, it becomes part of the seawall assembly.
so you actually eyeballed this, approved it, and you feel that this is really a good thing for the
Oh, this is
community.
fantastic. Yeah, this is,
Okay.
he's going even higher. This is
How
excellent.
high is he going on the stem wall?
According to the plans, it's another 4 feet up, which is what he needs because that's about how high it's going to be to get to like the deck of his pool.
And the other question is how is that compared to the other properties surrounding his? In other words, when we did our accessory marine facilities conversations, we were concerned about making each property a separate moat, so to speak.
Well, everyone has a very low seawall height, but they all have high properties in that area. So as they bring everything up, they're all gonna have to do probably essentially the same thing.
So he's ahead of the curve, basically.
He's gonna be ahead of the curve in any new developmental, any new properties, because we have a ton just being knocked down and rebuilt. They're gonna have to be built significantly higher. So he's future-proofing himself and it's, he kind of has to do it because of the amount of unbalanced backfill, what we call, coming off of his property.
Any other questions,
I-
Chair?
I have a question, Jeff. I have a question. It's up 40, by the way, it's up 40 inches, which is great to elevate the seawall 40 inches. 12 plus 28. But if you want to put a stem wall like this on an existing seawall, whether the seawall is in good condition or bad condition, because this stem wall you can put up to elevate your retaining wall and your seawall without coming before the planning board?
If you have an existing seawall that's in place.
Yeah.
It is my understanding, and Ingrid could confirm that retaining walls are not
She said
all
that.
retaining, okay, so that's my mistake.
Right.
Because because we had an issue with, that was landscaping. All right, I'm thinking about the landscaping issue. You still have to go in front of the planning board, apparently, if you're gonna build a retaining wall on top of or in front of a seawall. And essentially, I believe we decided if it's gonna be greater than 30 inches.
Right, but this is a great solution for anybody that wants to elevate the height of their seawall without having to redo the entire seawall.
Well, okay, without getting too far off, that really depends on what condition the seawall is in and how well it was built, because often the seawall cannot handle the additional imposed load, which is why, sometimes they can put a bigger cap on it and raise it, and other times they just simply can't do that because of the weight capacity limitation. So they're forced to put in a new. So a lot of the permits we see coming in are coming with brand new seawalls because they don't have the ability to have that additional weight on top of the seawall itself.
And that's determined by their engineer? or
By their engineer, we don't
With your
design.
approval?
Yeah, and we look at it for approval. We send it to our town engineer to basically do a peer review to make sure that their calculations and their design meets, minimum safety standards.
Thank you for your input. Any other board members have questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Please, go ahead.
So I would, I don't know how we would go about doing this, but Roger made an interesting point. It could become like a loophole where people just call them stem walls and are building them as high as they want. And that saying that there's nothing in the code that prohibits stem walls. So maybe we should clarify in the code that stem walls are like retaining walls and should come before the planning board, just so that nobody gets it in their head that they can, no, retaining wall.
No.
No, she said
Well,
stem
let's-
wall,
let's-
it was
okay, then let's-
silent in the,
let's-
silent in the code.
Let's see if we can qualify that before we move on.
Right, but keep in mind, this, as the engineer indicated, the stem wall is part of the seawall. So it's part of the seawall. They have to come before the planning board.
Right, but if it wasn't part of the seawall, if they were building some stem wall that they titled it stem wall, and the code didn't specifically say stem walls have to come in front of the planning board, I'm just saying that maybe we should clarify that retaining walls and stem walls, because you said to me they're almost indistinguishable.
I mentioned that they're similar in terms of
Similar,
construction,
right,
but yeah. So you're saying a stem wall not related to a seawall, just,
Right,
would there be a scenario for a stem wall? Okay.
so I just think that.
Just terminology.
Yeah, right.
but
I just think
see
if,
your point.
if you have to come to the planning board for a retaining wall, but the code is silent on the stem wall, unless it's part of the seawall, then that might be a clarification to the code that we might want to make so that it's all closed up, that everybody has to come.
Actually, Jeff, so Jeff, is there any other term other than retaining wall, stem walls, or anything else that's similar or comparable to that, that may, we can maybe have a long list of, or is it just basically those two?
It would typically be those two. And again, I don't know why the engineer called it a stem wall because, but he did, and that's what we're dealing with. But either way, the function it performs is that of a retaining wall. So we look at the function. And to your point, we already had the situation where someone didn't want to spend the money to raise their seawall because they would have had to replace it because didn't have the ability. So what they did is they came in about 2 or 3 feet, built a like 28, 30 inch, just under 30-inch retaining wall and brought in fill. So it's essentially, it's landscaping, but as their wall continues to deteriorate, they're eventually going to have to replace it anyway. So they're just basically didn't want to spend the money on raising the seawall. So it's nothing that, because it was less than 30 inches in height and it was landscaping, it didn't have to come in front of the planning board. So that
But
maybe
to
that's something that we
Eileen's
wanna
point,
tackle.
Right.
and I agree with you, to Eileen's point, is there a potential loophole where you could call it a stem wall and not come before the planning board? And do we have to correct that? If there is a loophole, do we have to correct that?
I'm not quite sure. Again, I think Jeff made a good point. It's about the function. You could call it what it is, but it's actually a retaining, right? It's retaining
Okay.
something. So,
Right.
One of the ways that you can cure this is when you see the picture,
yeah,
is to add the definition and say that it's equivalent. in-
or maybe stem wall / retaining
Right.
wall.
Right,
Have it-
that's all.
Put that on
And
the
we're good.
plan.
And that
Okay.
solves the
Yeah.
issue.
Right.
for all
I
of
think
us.
that would be better.
Right, that's fine.
Yeah.
When they come in with stem wall, tell them to call
Yeah.
it a retaining wall.
Yeah, and actually, I believe on their application, it is in your packets if you bear with me for a moment. Yeah, on their application on page 10 of your packets, the applicant put retaining wall on the application.
Okay,
But on the plans, it says stem wall.
all
So
right, no, I,
the application is what the applicant submits. I take
Right.
it at face value, but
Okay.
I
that-
think that's a good step. I've yet to see anyone else identify that before.
no,
and
but
since the
I
time I've
think
been
it's a
here,
good point that Eileen brought up. She's in here as
Yeah.
an attorney and she wants to make sure that
We could have them put the / retaining
Yeah.
wall, so
dot
yeah,
and cross the Ts.
no problem.
Do we need any further action from the town planner at this point? Does the board, excuse me. Is there a presentation from the applicant or do we want to move forward? I say we move forward. Is there any members of the public that have any comment on this application? Please, come and identify yourself. Could you need to come to the podium? No.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Norman Weinstein, I'm at 4207 Tranquility, just to the neighbor on the north of Kai, who has been, through no fault of his own, laboring on this project for probably the better part of 3 years. Almost 3 years, with a large portion of that time where we had a large barge, Sea-Tech barge sitting in front of our home, for probably 4 or 5 months. It was only on repeated phone calls that I made to Sea-Tech. They actually removed the barge from the front of, our dock. Our dock is, our seawall on that side is in good condition. We regularly have it inspected and sealed every 2 to 3 years. We actually did it recently this past fall. So our concern, since our seawall is integrally tied in with Kai's, is that when Sea-Tech does their work, that they do not damage our seawall in any way whatsoever, and if they do, that they would be responsible for repairs. I know that you saw the photos of how the seawall has this huge bend in it, and that occurred as it began to fail. And then I guess Alan Garcia, whom I know very well, got involved, and Sea-Tech put in these pilings to support the seawall from failure. And I assume those pilings will be just cut down. I don't really know the construction of the seawall. It's not my area of expertise. But I assume when they're finished, the seawall is going to look good, and you're probably not going to be able to see those pilings. But that would, I guess, be a question to Sea-Tech. But I just want to make sure that our seawall will remain intact, and if it is damaged, it will be repaired, because there are no cracks of any kind whatsoever in any portion of that area of the seawall.
Jason, you have. Yeah, I would, that is not really our area of concern, but I would think that you seem to be fairly friendly with Kai, that you folks can work that out among yourselves. But we appreciate your input.
I just want the planning board to
You
be
want it on,
aware of the actual, on-site conditions that we've been going through for the past several years.
all right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And any board members have any other questions of staff, applicant, or the public? If so, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve with conditions, motion to deny the request, or a motion just to approve? Do I have a
Motion to approve.
second? Let's call the question, please, Mr. Hart.
Member Chinovsky,
Yes.
Member Axelrod,
Yes.
Member Rosen, Member Brown, Member Powell,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendelson,
Yes.
Chairperson Goldenberg.
Yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you so much. All right, next agenda item, development application 23-0018. Application by David Willand, is that correct pronunciation? For an amendment to a previously approved major modification request to an existing building from the development order 23-0002 as provided in section 30-39 of the Town Code of Ordinances, including but not limited to changes to the exterior facade, building footprint, and the roof line for the property located at 2362 South Ocean Boulevard. Do any members have any ex parte communications to disclose? Hearing none at this time, the public hearing is now open. Ms. Allen, please present the application.
Okay, so here we have the aerials of the property.
Thank you, Jeff, for your input.
The aerials start on page 59 of your packets. So here we have the property, located on the west side of A1A. Here you have the front of the home. And here you have the rear of the home. So as indicated, this is an amendment to a previously approved major June 8th of 2023. And the previous approval, the main components of that approval, and I provided those on page 55 of your packets. That included two additional garages totaling 1,197.41 square feet with new air-conditioned area above and two new balconies. It also included a new covered entertainment area along the rear of the property, exterior facade changes, including alterations to the balconies, that also to the windows and doors with a more modern style architecture, and alteration of the roof line. Now, on the newly proposed, let me just show you, here's a survey of the property. And here you have the site plan. I'm going to show you these here. These are again in your 11 by 17 packets. The new amendment eliminates the garages. If you could see the bottom here on the slide, the bottom square is the previously approved. You could see the first floor is the lower one, the top one there is the second floor. Those two squares in the front, those were the previous garages, and you could see the top one here, the newly proposed, those garages have been eliminated. Also, the entertainment area in the rear has been eliminated. The new proposal does include new exterior facade changes to the windows, doors, and balconies to a more Balinese traditional modern style or modern design. In addition, there's been some changes to the front entry of the residence. Again, if you look at the previously approved, there was a water feature in the front. And if you look at the top, you could see that water feature has been removed. In addition, let's see here. There was a new under air square footage both on the first and second floor of the existing residence that have been reduced. Again, you could see these also on the slide that's in front of you, and also the roof line has been altered. I also mentioned on page 55 of your packet, your staff report, that in their original major modification, they were going to remove, because they submitted a landscape plan with that original one, they were going to remove 3 royal palms from their property, not from the right of way, but actually the actual property. And I did indicate back in June that those royal palms per our code are considered specimen trees. And the code says when you remove a specimen tree, you have to get town commission approval. Well, on their revised landscape plan, which is in your packet, those 3 royal palms will now remain. So no need to get the approval from the commission.
It's
Um,
nice to hear.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. As with every site plan review, even though it's a major modification, still consider a site plan review. Commencement of construction, if the application is approved, shall be initiated within 2 years. The board can approve with conditions or deny the applications. The plans that were date stamped February 15th of 2024 have been reviewed by staff. They've been determined to be compliant with the code. We have the property owner here to address any questions that you may have.
One question, the footprint is basically the same, it's just modifications within the footprint.
Right, actually, it's a little bit smaller because those 2 new garages are not going to be there. Again, you could look at that great little slide here. Right, it's a smaller footprint than what was previously approved.
Any other board members have questions?
I'd be
for
happy to
them?
go through the renderings. I don't know if you want me to do that, but
I'm just, explain to me the garages and the bottom part, it's the bottom thing, the bottom one, right?
that was
Those-
previously approved.
Right, and those garages were on the side,
No, they're in the front.
in the front.
They're in the front, and
Okay.
then the second floor is that top part. That's the
Right.
second floor where they had additional square footage, but that's not happening anymore.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
Any other questions? No.
Again, I'll be happy to show the renderings. They're in your 11 by 17, but you could see the change in that design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just a style and a size modification. And a landscape.
Yeah, again, aesthetic, the facade, some square footage, minor reduction in the under AC square footage.
And we like to thank the applicant for keeping the royal palms also. That's very nice. Yes. Any other questions of the board? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve, a motion to approve with conditions, or a motion to deny the request? Second. Mr. Hart? Call the roll, please.
Was it Jason who said second?
Jason second.
Member Rosen? Member Chinovsky? Member Brown? Member Powell?
Yes.
Member Axelrod?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendelson?
Yes.
Chairperson Goldenberg?
Yes.
Motion
Motion is
carries.
approved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your assistance. All right, thank you, Ms. Allen. Next on the agenda, motion nomination of chairperson and vice chairperson, persons. Nominations are now open for chairperson. Are there any nominations other than I hopefully
I
myself?
would like to nominate Eric to be re-elected another year.
Thank you.
Second.
And third, okay. I accept the nomination. And let's put it formally, Eric Goldenberg has been nominated. No other nominations for chairperson. Is there a motion to approve?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. Nominations for vice chairperson. Eileen, you want to,
Yes, I'd like to
Continue?
continue.
I
And-
nominate Eileen.
Second.
I guess we can do, so to put it in, Eileen Mendelson will accept the nomination. Eileen Mendelson has been nominated. Shall we all vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As we continue for another year, hopefully it'll be nice and easy. All right, announcements. There was a change and March 19th, so everybody's aware, 2024, 10 a.m. The 2024 presidential preference primary, or PPP, as it's known, is Uniform Municipal Election Town Hall will be closed March 21st, 2024, 10 a.m. Financial Advisory Board meeting. And I think we can adjourn this meeting at 10:02. May I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
10:02.